Is Tennessee going to slip up or get a prize in replacing Jerry Mack? So let me tell you something about, please hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, get your notifications on about the running back position. That's where you put your best recruiter. Doesn't have to be a great X's and O's guys, an X's and O's guy. Great running backs can run the green. You have to teach pass protection. I get that. Pass protection with Dylan Sampson hadn't been so fantastic, and he's entering his third year. So I've got to wonder what was going on there. So I think this could be an upgrade at the position. If Tennessee decides to go out and hire the best person possible. And right now, our poll question is, please vote. Josh Heupel's replacement for Jerry Mack should be blank. In-house, good thing going, splash hire, get the best. So Caleb, where would you go on this? Because there's reasons to make an in-house hire. And I'm gonna give you like 3 examples. But because here's, according to Patrick Brown of 247, it's looking a little bit like an in-house guy. So here's the names that he has reported. But first, if you can't answer my question, that would you prefer it be in-house, or would you prefer that Tennessee goes out and hires a Trooper Taylor, a Jay Graham, a Montario Hardesty from South Carolina? It doesn't have to be a guy with Tennessee ties, but goes out and hires the best, dogged, working recruiting like nobody else. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's close. I think you go for the splash outside. And the reason I think, and I don't usually say that, and it's funny because I don't say that about a lot of important positions. Like offensive line coach, I think you want to make sure you have the right guy that's going to coach your offensive line. Receivers, I think Josh Heupel needs a developer of receivers. I think there is a lot of developmental work that goes there. Defensive backs, D-line. You guys know where I'm going with this. I don't think it's close that with a running backs coach, you go for the best recruiter you can find. Period. End of story. I don't care about their ability to coach on the field. You go for the guy with the best recruiting connections possible in the region. Period.
Let's take a look at this list. And I want Patrick to know, because he watches the show every day, and I want everybody to know that I'm not ripping Patrick Brown. I think this reporting is solid. But these listed names do absolutely nothing for me. So I'm going to bring it up now. And you have Max Thurman. Well, everybody loves Max Thurman, especially his parents. He's currently a Tennessee offensive analyst. So this would be going the same direction that Tennessee went when they upgraded Kelsey Pope, receivers coach, and they did the same thing for oh my gosh, Joey Halsley. They hired him from within. So let's go to, and then Alec Ablin too was actually not a coach. Halsley was a coach beforehand, but we're talking about offensive assistants. Ashton Walker, another offensive assistant who I know you don't know. Matt Merritt, South Florida running backs coach. I think this could be a potential splash hire. He was hired by Miami as its running backs coach, but the Hurricanes have yet to formally announce this addition. And then you go to Anthony Tucker, Mississippi State running backs coach, Anthony Jones, TCU's running backs coach. None of these do anything for me. So I'm quite comfortable, Caleb, with staying in-house. Let me give you a couple of reasons why. Reason number 1, it's an offensive coach. Go get the best recruiter you can, but you would agree it's going to be Josh Heupel's offense, right?
Yeah.
Number 2, I have seen coaches come in and destroy chemistry. Sometimes it was their fault, sometimes it wasn't. Dave Clawson did that. Now, I think you could argue Philip Fulmer shouldn't have hired him in the first place, and Philip Fulmer was the guy who created the chemistry issues because he was looking over his shoulder. But nevertheless, there were chemistry issues caused by that. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to go
Bob
with
Shoop did that at Tennessee.
What's that?
Bob Shoop did that at Tennessee too when Butch Jones hired Bob Shoop as defensive coordinator.
Did what?
Caused chemistry issues with the rest of the staff.
Oh, okay. Bob Shoop. Clearly, Chuck Smith caused chemistry issues. He was taking away the responsibility from substituting during games. I know that was Derek Dooley's best friend, but that caused chemistry issues, and then he later went crazy. So I could go on and on and on. There have been 4 or 5 guys, and the culture of this program is great. So 99 times out of 100, I would be with you, Caleb. But you've said it so many times. The 2024 season is so big for Josh Heupel. I would go make a solid but easy hire, and I can't believe I'm saying this, from within the program and tell Trooper Taylor, Jay Graham, Montario Hardesty, we'll see. This isn't the year. And that is exactly what I do. I would do. And I swear to you, I would argue the other side 99 times out of 100. But in this particular case, keep everybody on the same page. Here's another player that they brought in that destroyed team chemistry is Kelly Washington. You just have that chemistry to me is so fragile. Culture is so fragile. I don't think you want to screw it up going into the 2024 season. Take?
I don't think it's possible for a running backs coach to cause chemistry issues. So out of everybody you named,
well, okay. Can I argue against that for a second?
Sure.
I don't think Trooper Taylor and John Chavis liked each other a damn bit.
I don't think it hurt anything. I don't think it hurt anything when Trooper Taylor and John Chavis didn't like each other. Tennessee did win the East in 2007, and
good retort. It didn't. But I know there were issues.
Sides of the ball.
I know there were issues, and to support your point too, there were issues constantly between David Cutcliffe and John Chavis because they were battling over players. I mean, there was at your throat arguments. I want this guy. No, I want this guy. So,
including what side of the ball they would play. I'm guessing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't think you realize how close a lot of players like Jason Witten were to playing defensive end, or a lot of players like Carl Pickens was to playing defensive back instead of wide receiver long term. I mean, those battles happened all the time.
So deeper story with that, it's funny because I think that was why it seems like John Chavis and David Cutcliffe had those fights, but it seems like with Randy Sanders, John Chavis usually won those fights because remember Jonathan Wade converting over to defensive back?
Oh, no,
I feel like Randy Sanders was pushed over.
He won all of those fights with Randy, which is one of the reasons I thought that Randy's got way too thrown under the bus. Yes, he wasn't a great coach, but he didn't win any of those fights. You know, he didn't get Rashad Baker, who Philip Fulmer comes out and said is the smoothest receiver I've ever seen from day one. And day two, he got moved to defensive back. So Sean Chavis flipped out. So that is where Tennessee is. So I would argue you're arguing that chemistry issues don't necessarily undermine your success, but I think you would agree that they certainly can.
No, I'm not arguing that because I agree largely. I believe in chemistry too. I think that's Tennessee's biggest advantage with returning talent. I just don't think running backs coaches could possibly bring that chemistry issue. Running backs coaches are recruiters. Like that's all they are. I mean, they don't need to coach anything, quite honestly. And so I would barely have the running backs coach at practice. So it wouldn't even matter for chemistry anyway. I'd be like, hey, Joey, Josh Heupel has Joey Halsey as his offensive coordinator. I would be like, if I'm Heupel, Joey, I run the offense. Why don't you go work with the running backs? And then I would have the running backs coach on the road all the time.
Yeah.
Recruiting.
And then you got the announcement over the megaphone. Just want to let everybody know the only guy that's allowed to have a cell phone during practice is the running backs coach because he's our Uber recruiter. It's not the dumbest idea in the world, but now I'm all for keeping chemistry, and I'm actually going to write a column about that. I just don't think this is the year that you potentially go out and get somebody. Now,
would you let Montario Hardesty leave South Carolina or Georgia? You hire him and you say, just stay in South Carolina. You can live there even. Just recruit the area for us.
Yeah, I mean, it'll save us all kinds of travel expenses. But Montario Hardesty would probably be the one that I would say if he called, I would go his route. But let me ask you this: that list of names that Patrick had is not really impressive. And again, I'm not knocking his reporting, but why aren't there bigger names on that list? Because I'm going to assume he's getting that list from somewhere. Why aren't there big names that want to come be a part of Tennessee's program? Because it's one of a couple of things. either they view the offense as set and they don't think they're going to have a voice, or they don't believe in Josh Heupel and long-term success, or Josh Heupel's not fishing for those big names. Those are really the only three possibilities of why there aren't bigger names. I mean, you probably never even heard of those guys that they reported at 247.
No, actually, I'll be honest, I didn't. It's 3, but it's for a really good reason. Josh Heupel's in conversation with Danny White all the time. Every nickel or dime they spend on a staff member is a nickel or dime the boosters can't use in NIL money. And why open the Josh Heupel is so confident in what he's doing. Why open the checkbook for a big staff member that you don't think is that important?
So what you want, and don't take the negative connotation with this, but what you're suggesting is you want a bunch of yes men that are running around that are going to do football wise what you tell them to do, and then recruit the bejesus out of their area. Is basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Brought you, explain that. It's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. The Hemp House. All right. Explain why. Because on the surface, if somebody just tuned in to say, I want to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men would be a sign of an insecure leader. And I don't think Josh Heupel is that.
The days of Lane Kiffin's staff at Tennessee are over.
I want to get to that. Go ahead.
Yes. You don't open up the checkbook for staff members anymore because money spent on staff is money you can't spend on recruits. Recruits are more important than staff.
Well, and finish up.
Yeah, so I think that Josh Heupel, he's hiring competent people to do the job. He's not hiring Sal Sinceri to run the defense, okay? He's hiring who you and I believe is a very good defensive coordinator in Tim Banks. He's hired a guy with SEC ties in Rodney Garner, and then he's hired a bunch of position coaches who can do the job. And by the way, as you've noticed, Dave, he's gone the Nick Saban route. How many analysts does this guy have working off the field with players?
Are you talking about Heupel or are you talking about what Saban had? I mean, he's got a lot, but he doesn't have big name guys. That's the difference. He doesn't have former head coaches like Butch Jones, which is there's no name bigger than Butch Jones. And let me tell you something you led me perfectly into, and we didn't talk about this at 3:45 a.m. production meeting, but you led me into this perfectly. That staff that Lane Kiffin put together wasn't going to work. And I'm not going to call out any names, but there were some people on that staff that were party town. There were other people on that staff that were very, very Christian. And if you went back and looked at it and Googled some of my old stories, you could figure it out. There were a couple of the Christian guys that were going to leave, and they were quality coaches. They didn't like the way that it was a little too wild, and they didn't like the way that their families weren't really welcome. So that staff was not going to work. I'm not saying Lane Kiffin couldn't have hired someone else and had success at Tennessee, but that specific staff was not going to work. And that's probably the first time you've heard that, right? Because I know
that is the first time I heard it. But I thought Lane Kiffin
who I can't remember left before Lane did. He was out the door, and we could go back and research that.
Well, that's why he hired Kippy. Was it the wide receivers coach? Because he hired Kippy Brown as an assistant in the offseason that year. Yeah,
I believe it was. And then the other one that was going to fall has been an offensive coordinator. You can Google it if you want, but it was going to happen. He's been an offensive coordinator in the SEC. They were going to lose him for sure. I know for sure they were going to lose those two dudes. So all-star staffs sometimes just don't work, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And now 2 staff members leaving is not a big deal. You can replace that. I mean, let's be honest. That Lane Kiffin staff, did you see Wolf of Wall Street, Dave?
It's so deviant. I hate to admit it, but yes, several times.
So what you're saying is the Lane Kiffin staff was basically like the executives at Wolf of Wall Street. That's what a workday was like, basically.
Yes, but they were all pushing in the same direction, which was Leonardo DiCaprio's character's version, and that was to make more money. If you weren't all pushing in the same direction as Lane. Well, yeah, if you went to a guy and said, we're going to hire you as the running backs coach, but in all honesty, dude, just get out there and recruit. He might buck.
What if you pay him?
So he's Jonah Hill. Yeah.
I mean, call Trooper Taylor. Be like, we don't even want you. I mean, by the way, Trooper's actually a good coach, so I'd make him more than just a running backs coach. But like,
I agree.
call, call Montario Hardesty. I don't know how good of a running backs coach he is, but just say, I don't need you at practice. I need you in Georgia and South Carolina. That's it. Georgia and South Carolina. Just recruit that area like your life depended on it. Here's a big check to do it, and never even show up for practice. We don't need you at practice, bro. We need you selling players to come to Tennessee. I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't know why that hasn't been done. I mean, honestly, I can't figure out why that hadn't been done yet, where you just don't get a running backs coach. A running backs coach is just basically another recruiter. Have him pretend to show up for practice once a week to pretend like he's like actually coaching something. And, he'll give one bit of advice. You need to run harder right there. All right, I'm off to recruit.
Can I tell you something? I really thought the Trooper Taylor thing, that wasn't just a pipe dream, because it would be great for us, because Trooper's a friend of mine. And he knows the best soul food restaurants in Knoxville. He finds stuff that I didn't even know existed. But I thought there was a chance of that, because I think that David Cutcliffe, the SEC office, and Josh Heupel have a lot of respect for one another. And I know that David is very, very high on Josh. And I'm a little surprised that maybe there wasn't a phone call made, because I can tell you helped me with the year. But when they talked to Cutcliffe, roughly, I guess it was after Lane Kiffin, that Trooper Taylor was going to be one of the first on his staff. So I really thought there was a chance that might happen. That wasn't me just throwing stuff against the wall. They never throw stuff against the wall at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? Go to rickterryjewelry.com. rickterryjewelry.com. And anybody that is a member of the Patreon group will be up for a drawing tomorrow on Valentine's Day, because I absolutely love Caleb and I want to spend Valentine's Day with him. So we'll be on here, and you can join the Patreon group and win some Fire Opals. We'll have a drawing tomorrow. So I was a little bit surprised. I think, and maybe there will be. What are the chances, do you think, out of 10 that there could be a splash hire?
I think it's like 3. I think Heupel is just, I think he takes your route, and I think Heupel is so cocky that I just don't think he thinks it's worth a headache to find staff members that are splash hires. I really think, I think Heupel is the type of guy who would say, don't you guys know I'm the splash?
I think there's something to that. And that sounds cocky, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think Heupel's like, he knows that he is the splash. So he knows that it doesn't really matter who else he hired.